If you're at all involved in Assassin's Creed content on the internet, be it YouTube videos or comments, Reddit or even Steam forums, you might have come across such a sentiment. This is a good game, but it's a bad Assassin's Creed title. This statement is most often associated with Odyssey and Valhalla, and while the latter is a subject for another time, I would like to spend a minute talking about the former, because I do agree with the sentiment. That being said, I do firmly believe Odyssey is an enjoyable title, and being a bad Assassin's Creed is not necessarily such a terrible thing. But before I talk about why I think Odyssey is a bad continuation of the series, I think it's important to talk about what exactly constitutes Assassin's Creed, what are the main pillars of the franchise, and how they compare to Odyssey's world. What are the pillars of Assassin's Creed in terms of gameplay? Of course, almost every game adds new mechanics or elaborates on already existing ones, however there are some that distinguish themselves from the rest. The possibly most iconic one is parkour, climbing buildings to evade guards, jumping from one rooftop to another after an assassination, and experiencing the game world from almost a bird's eye view, in stark contrast with most video games, which place you on street level, along with the NPCs. While parkour is still available in Odyssey, it is, I would say, discouraged, or at the very least, inefficient. Let's take a look at Assassin's Creed 1's Damascus. The buildings have very clear climbing starters, and once you're on top, you can see how they're either close to each other, enabling you to simply jump between the rooftops, or they have connecting textures such as ropes or wooden beams. Meanwhile, running on the streets would only slow you down, with guards blocking off the narrow streets and alleyways, and bumping into NPCs at the wrong time could lead to your character falling to the ground. However, in the newer titles, movement has been incredibly simplified. Parkour no longer requires finding the right path to climb the building, as you can simply hold down the climbing button and your character will be able to climb virtually anything, with very limited exceptions. This in and of itself is not necessarily a bad change, but it does take away from the realism of the game. You are no longer a skilled and agile assassin, but now you're more of a Spider-Man. Another gameplay mechanic heavily featured in older titles is social stealth. I would say that it was not only a gameplay mechanic but also a narrative choice. You are a blade in the crowd, silently assassinating your target, and once again disappearing in the confusion. This, aside from parkour, used to be one of the main ways you could infiltrate restricted areas. It served the idea of the assassin order working in the shadows. Unfortunately, however, it appears that social stealth has been all but abandoned by Ubisoft, with the confirmation that it will not be a feature in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Stealth as a whole seems to be lacking in recent titles, although the gameplay showcase of Shadows seems to indicate that they are trying to come back to it, or at the very least improve the experience with newer and more interesting mechanics, but I'm going to reserve my judgment for when the game actually comes out and I get the chance to play it. Odyssey actively discourages stealth by continuing the annoying trend of not outright giving you one-shot assassinations and including boss fights that cannot be stealth. Sure, the old games included these as well, such as Robert the Sable in AC1 or Rodrigo Borgia in AC2, but the majority of the main targets and enemies could be killed in stealth, and if you quietly made your way to an enemy, an assassination was just that, an assassination, not a wound. This can absolutely be fixed with mods, or by creating crit and or assassination builds, but this should not be necessary. It was changed simply to play by the typical RPG damage numbers, completely disregarding not only one of the franchise's core aspects, but also realism. I mean, come on, you expect me to believe that a trained mercenary or a killer proficient enough to be recognized by random soldiers can sneak behind someone's back, stab them with a spear, and they just walk it off and start fighting them as if nothing happened? Come on. Fortunately, the way it was handled in Valhalla was perfect, but hey, let's save that one for another time. While Assassin's Creed has many more gameplay mechanics, I feel like these two are really the core of the franchise. So with that, let's move on to the second point. The iconography of the series is a rather simple topic. We've got assassins, Templars, hidden blades, hooded robes, the Animus, the pieces of Eden, all of that good stuff. Pretty much all of those have been present in the newer titles, however it's their presentation itself that I find lacking, and their inclusions, surface level, tacked on, simply to check a box. Let's go one at a time, yeah? The Assassins and Templars. I'll just lump them together because honestly the Templars have been mostly fine. Do I miss the kind of philosophical debates Templars had with our protagonists in the memory corridors in AC1 or 3? Sure, but the current iteration of them is fine. To quote Anatoly Dyatlov, not great, not terrible. I do, however, have one issue with the Templar standard in Odyssey, the Cult of Cosmos. Some of them are revealed through main quests, and some others through side quests. However, the majority of them you have to hunt down, based on clues you find throughout the world. For example, you kill one, and get a clue that there's another one on some island, and that the blacksmith might know more. So you go there, purchase a clue from a blacksmith, and you get to reveal their identity, read the little lore tidbit, and get their location marked on the map so you can go and kill them. Each member holds an Isu shard, and they can be used to upgrade your spear, which subsequently enhances your abilities and unlocks additional tiers of them. Sounds pretty good, right? There's only one problem though, they don't get memory corridors. They completely got rid of them in Odyssey. Some of the most fascinating and thought-provoking conversations in the franchise would happen in those post-assassination memory corridors, and Ubisoft just decided to completely drop the idea for Odyssey.
Be at peace.
You'll pay for this. You and all your kind.
It seems you're the one pays now, my friend. You'll not profit from suffering any longer.
You think me some petty death dealer, suckling at the breast of war? A strange target, don't you think? Why me, when so many others do the same?
You believe yourself different, then?
Oh, but I am. For I serve a far nobler cause than mere profit. Just like my brothers.
Brothers?
Ah, but he thinks I act alone. I am but a piece. A man with a part to play. You'll come to know the others soon enough. They won't take kindly to what you've done.
Good. I look forward to ending their lives as well.
Such pride. It will destroy you, child.
Now that is a massive disappointment, and thank God they came to their senses and went back to them in subsequent installments. As you can see, my thoughts on the quote-unquote Templar portrayal in Odyssey are not particularly great, although there's still some neat aspects there. The assassin portrayal on the other hand, oh boy. Now bear with me here, because I'm going to talk about specifically being an assassin rather than the entire assassin iconography. That will be covered in a moment, but for the sake of simplicity, and also to make it a bit easier for me to format the script, I wanted to separate the group from the symbols. So, the assassins. More of a creed than a group nowadays, with all of the expanded lore surrounding them, but whichever part of the Brotherhood they belong to, they do generally identify with the term, or with games set prior to AC1, the Hidden Ones. That is, they did until the RPG trilogy. And with Origins I have absolutely no problem, as it was about the, well, origins of the Brotherhood, their traditions, ideology, etc. What I do have an issue with, however, is Odyssey's setting. Odyssey has you take the role of a character who is not an assassin, nor a hidden one, which does make sense, I suppose, given that the game takes place around 400 years before Origins, which, why? Why would you set an Assassin's Creed game 400 years before the creation of the Assassins? Well, aside from the obvious answer of Ubisoft wanting to cash in on the timeless popularity of ancient Greece, which, to be fair, credit where credit's due, I love Odyssey, but more on that later, there's one character that appears in the game, or more specifically the DLC, that makes this make sense, and that is Darius. Now, Darius is a legendary figure in the AC universe. He created the first hidden blade and used it to assassinate Xerxes. He has a statue in Villa Auditore in Monteriggioni, and as the name of the DLC, Legacy of the First Blade, implies, he's one of, if not the main character in it. I saw some discussion around his character with people not necessarily liking him all that much, but honestly when I played it I thought he was fine, whatever. Anyway, Darius was the perfect choice for the game, and yet Ubisoft decided to give us an unrelated Misthios. It was Darius who invented the Hidden Blade. Don't you think he would have been the ideal protagonist for Odyssey? This is how you make a game set before the creation of the Hidden Ones, man. Origins laid the groundwork with Aya talking about Darius, and then Odyssey explores that topic by letting you live through that. Let's say the tutorial area is some small part of Persia. You have a couple of cutscenes, wham bam, Xerxes is dead. Darius flees to Greece, discovers the not Templars, hunts them down for a bit, then the actual Order of the Ancients appears, and we've got a wonderful game. I mean, hell, you could even skip the entire Order of the Ancients thing and just have Darius discover that although the Cult of Cosmos is a separate entity, the ideology of the Order is spreading, or whatever. But anyway, since we are on the topic of Darius and the Hidden Blade, I'm going to try and make this one a bit shorter than the previous section, partially because it got a little larger than I was originally anticipating and I've still got a lot to talk about, but also because this is the topic that I feel very strongly about and I don't want to ramble off topic too much. So, Odyssey. Since you are not Darius, and I'm still not over it, your character does not have access to the blade. First game in the series to deny you the iconic weapon of the assassins. I played Odyssey a couple of years after it released, so I wasn't in on the initial reaction train, but when I eventually got to it, I found it jarring. I mean, sure, the spear kills were great, don't get me wrong. The plethora of animations they came up with was fantastic. One of my favorites was the one in which, if your target was in front of a wooden wall, your character would pin them to the wall with the spear, push them off it, and then yank it out of the wall. But while I loved the animations, it just wasn't the same without the blade. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but for me it's an integral part of the series just as much as the Assassin vs Templar conflict. Going into the game, as I said, a couple of years after release, I knew that one of the DLCs was titled Legacy of the First Blade. So I assumed that we were going to meet Darius, go on some cool, chill adventure, kill some cultists, and get his blade at the end for our character to keep. Now obviously I was wrong, and this is in my opinion a missed opportunity. I mean, don't get me wrong, it would have been scummy as hell to look something as iconic as the blade behind the paid DLC, but still I would have found it better than deciding to omit it altogether. This is going to be the last part, partly because honestly it's not as important to me, and also because it's mostly fine. The ropes change with every installment, which makes sense as almost every subsequent title takes place in a drastically different time period, location or both, and so the style of the assassin changes, with the main characteristic being a hood, hiding our character's face, and the peak in front of the hood. In terms of outfits, Odyssey is fine, I would say. You've got different armor sets with different types of metals for all of them, as well as some more sneaky gear and hoods. You can even unlock Darius' set, which even offers you pants, which I greatly appreciated. The pieces of Eden and the Animus are to some extent present in every title. I don't find the ones in Odyssey particularly interesting, but then again I haven't really cared about them that much since like AC2 or Brotherhood. The 10th time you see an Apple of Eden pulling some magic shit and creating illusions is really not as interesting after a while. Now that I've spent a fair amount of time talking shit about Odyssey, you might think I hate the game, but not at all. At the time of recording this, I have around 300 hours in Odyssey. I have been replaying the game and I honestly think it's an incredibly enjoyable title, if you give it a chance. The world of Odyssey is first and foremost fucking massive. I've seen people bring that up as a negative, stating that there is just too much to do, but come on, this isn't your job. Just play it at your own pace and stop whenever you feel like it. Nothing is forcing you to clear every single question mark on the map or do every single side quest. To me, however, this is great. The bigger the game world, the better. Having grown up playing Oblivion, Skyrim, World of Warcraft, Fallout 3 and New Vegas and so on, I fell in love with traversing vast fictional worlds, meeting new NPCs, learning their stories, exploring various caves, dilapidated temples, massive castles. If the core gameplay loop is something I find fun, then the massive world simply means more time spent doing what I enjoy. The problem appears when the worlds are empty or just flat out boring, but with Odyssey I never felt that way. This is of course different for every person, but hell, I loved it. Odyssey's world is also absolutely stunning. I mean, just look at this. This is beautiful. I don't know how many times I've stopped just to enjoy the scenery or take a couple of screenshots. This is a world that you want to explore, a world that draws you in. You see this fort on top of a mountain and you're like, damn, what can I find there? Now what you can find there is usually pretty predictable, but hey, this section's about the world, so I wanted to focus on that. And sure, it continues to move away from dense, urban environments the franchise is known for. You will not find grandiose cathedrals to climb, tight alleyways to sneak through or rooftops to dart across. But what it does offer is a wide variety of beautiful landscape. Vast open plains, massive mountains, the Mediterranean Sea, which I still can't learn to fucking spell. Dark caves, ancient tombs, I mean I could really go on, and the treasure chests don't amount to simply climbing up a rooftop and opening up a chest. at least not usually. The game will have you crawl through a cave infested with the crazed followers of Ares, a snake-infested tomb, or dive deep down into the sea to explore a sunken ship, and sometimes a combination of those. I mean, hell, there's even an island with a cave in the middle of a volcano. And speaking of the sea, you've got a wide plethora of islands to explore. And how do you move between them, at least the first time before you unlock fast travel? Your own slightly customizable ship, including watered-down Black Flag naval combat. Now we might pick up on the fact that I'm not a huge fan of the ship. Frankly, naval combat just isn't as cool without cannons. But hey, at least it's an option. Personally, I simply enjoy sailing the sea and listening to Barnabas's wild tales. And let's not gloss over the fact that you are exploring ancient Greece. Who hasn't, in their childhood, read Greek myths and legends and fallen in love with them? Who hasn't wanted to explore that world, to see it really brought to light? I will concede that the idea of these ancient monsters being simply humans with an apple of Eden stuck inside of them is not really all that cool, but goddammit it was cool to fight the Minotaur or the Medusa. And let's not even talk about getting to see Atlantis, both before, after, and hell, even during the flood, because that's a whole another topic. But, since I've already gone on and on about all of these locations, let's take a look at what else you might find there, aside from the views and treasures. Or more specifically, at the two ways you can deal with the most common enemy, the humans, be it bandits, soldiers, or of another group. Yeah, it sucks. Enemies are absolute damage sponges and I feel like my weapon is a wet noodle, so I just set my difficulty to low. Also, Ubisoft, for the love of God, please stop making these stupid magical weapons. And no, I am not talking about the Shish Kebab 9000, I'm talking about weapons magically growing and shrinking in size when you unsheath or sheath them. It was there in Origins, it's here in Odyssey, and it's over there in Valhalla. This is the reason why I never use anything other than a sword or, in Valhalla, a one-handed axe. It's immersion breaking and I hate it. Yes, I understand that a proper spear would look stupid on my character's back. I don't care, it's a video game, big deal. By the way, not letting our Spartan character wield a shield was a travesty. It's not like you don't have the tech, shields are fine in Origins and Valhalla. Honestly, I can't figure out what the reason was. After that previous bit, let's focus on something more positive. Stealth in Odyssey is great. It might even be my favorite in the RPG trilogy. Now granted, I haven't played Origins and Valhalla in literally years, all in due time, but even before I started my most recent replay, I had incredibly fond memories of Odyssey's stealth. As I already pointed out, killing animations are great. I mean sure, they're not Hidden Blade great, but the animators did the best they could, and honestly, the animations are way more varied when compared to Origins' one or two animations per situation? But since I've already talked about the killing animations, I will not go into much detail here. Moving on. In terms of your approach to stealth, Odyssey drops the idea of a blade in the crowd, and let's be real, it would be real difficult to remain unnoticed after stabbing someone in the neck with a spear. Instead, it puts you in the role of a predator, roaming the tall grass and picking off your enemies one by one. While you no longer have gadgets such as the smoke bomb or berserker darts, the game offers a wide selection of tools to enrich your stealth. The Predator Arrow ability, letting you land the perfect headshot, the Rush Assassination, enabling multiple silent takedowns across a semi-wide area, or the Arrow of Artemis, letting you snipe guards through walls and other obstacles. And then there's Icaros, the last quote-unquote tool I wanted to talk about, if you could call him that. He will mark guards, entrance points and treasure chests, letting you create the perfect path to your objective. Do you go in during the day, because let's be honest, this game is even more gorgeous when the sun is out, or do you prefer the nighttime, when many guards go to sleep and become easy prey? Let's go through a typical process of cleaning a fort. First, you find a location near the fort where you will not be spotted and switch to Icaros. Mark all of the guards, any chests that you want to get, look for weak spots on the walls or perhaps an underground tunnel leading inside, and the signal beacon. With all of that information you can start planning. Do you silently creep towards the nation chests? Or perhaps you're like me, and you prefer to fully clear out any enemy encampments, killing every single enemy. Well, in that case, you first look for guards that are isolated from the rest. Once you get rid of the easy targets, you can move to the signal beacon and sabotage it, and from there start closing in on your main objective. But what if one of the patrolling guards discovers one of the bodies he forgot to hide and runs for the signal beacon? You are too far away to get to him in time, and should he light it, he will summon reinforcements, and with the alarm raised it will be that much harder to remain in stealth. Fortunately, thanks to planning out the approach, we have already made the beacon into an explosive surprise for the guard. Writing all of this down makes it sound really mundane, but damn is it fun to actually successfully execute an undetected run of a big fort. You could also add some additional challenges for yourself, if you're into that. An idea I've seen around Assassin's Creed communities is ghosting, or completing only your objective and nothing more. So, for example, only killing your target and simply evading all the other guards. Now I love assassinations too much to do that, so I came up with a different challenge to spice up my gameplay and really immerse myself into the game. As a massive Spartan loyalist, I refuse to kill Spartan soldiers unless I have to. For example, if they are a quest target or a polemark I have to get rid of to complete the objective. Usually what I will do is knock them unconscious and hide the bodies. Now this can sometimes be tricky, as should the bodies be spotted by any stray guard, they will wake up their comrades and begin searching the area for you. Does it make sense from a gameplay perspective? No. But it adds that little bit of immersion and lets me enjoy the game more, although at times it is challenging because of Odyssey's level system. Sometimes the enemy has too much health for me to knock him out, but still, I came up with a solution. Simply perch above the enemy, shoot him with an arrow to weaken him, and then in most cases, it'll be good to go. With that, however, we've touched upon a major flaw of the stealth system in Odyssey, and that is non-fatal assassinations. Look, I get what they were going for in an RPG title, and if you min-max your stats you will still be able to do that every time, but the idea of sneaking up to someone, stabbing them in the back with a broken spear and they still keep fighting you as if nothing happened is just silly. Fortunately there is a mod for that. Thank you, Nexus. When you look at the whole picture, it's easy to see why Odyssey alienated many longtime fans of Assassin's Creed, including myself, for many years after its release. It took a completely different path than the one the franchise was known for, and honestly a part of me does resent it for the lost opportunities, the stories we could have had. With Darius being explored and expanded upon the DLC, I don't think we're ever going to get to play as him, and for such an important figure in the franchise's lore it is truly a shame. So, is Odyssey a bad Assassin's Creed game? Yes, I do believe it is. Yet it does stand out, and it does stand on its own legs. I didn't find the story particularly interesting, and I tried to avoid the combat that the devs so clearly put so much time into as much as possible. But I still fell in love with the game, and that's because of the world it presented. I have always loved massive, sprawling worlds ready for exploration, and I believe there are many others like me. I mean hell, just look at the popularity of Skyrim, with its similarly mid-story and passable gameplay over 10 years after its release. It's the worlds that we engage with, and it's the worlds that keep us there. And Odyssey's Greece made me feel like that 10-year-old reading ancient Greek myths when I first played it, and honestly, it still does. So while yes, I will forever claim that Ubisoft made a mistake by not having enough courage to drop the franchise label and try to create something new, that will not stop me from cherishing the game, because it's the label holding Odyssey back, and not the other way around.